Nobody calls it a Cold War, not officially. There are no giant speeches, no iron curtains, no nuclear drills on television. But across Africa, the pressure is building. In the ports of the Atlantic, inside lithium mines buried beneath desert sand, through underwater internet cables, inside presidential palaces and military compounds, a new global struggle is unfolding. China is building roads, railways, surveillance systems, and strategic trade corridors across the continent. The United States says it is defending democracy, transparency, and security. But beneath the diplomatic language lies a far more uncomfortable reality. Africa is becoming the decisive geopolitical battleground of the 21st century, and this time, African leaders are refusing to simply obey. For decades, Africa was viewed through a familiar lens: aid, poverty, conflict, dependency. But something changed. By the early 2000s, China began rapidly expanding its footprint across the continent through what became known as the Belt and Road Initiative. Railways in Kenya, ports in Djibouti, hydroelectric projects in Zambia, industrial zones in Ethiopia. Beijing offered something many African governments found attractive: infrastructure without political lectures, no public pressure over elections, no governance conditions attached to every loan negotiation. In return, China secured strategic access: minerals, shipping routes, telecommunications infrastructure, and long-term economic influence. Meanwhile, the United States increasingly shifted focus towards security partnerships, counter-terrorism, governance reforms, and private sector investment frameworks. But by the mid-2020s, Washington began to realize something uncomfortable. China had already embedded itself deeply inside Africa's economic architecture. And nowhere is this rivalry becoming more dangerous than in the Sahel. The central question is no longer whether Africa matters. The question is, who controls the systems shaping Africa's future? And perhaps more importantly, can African nations navigate the pressure without surrendering their sovereignty? Nigeria now sits directly at the center of this geopolitical collision. Africa's largest economy has increasingly tried to balance relationships with Washington, Beijing, Europe, the Gulf states, and emerging BRICS partners simultaneously. But balancing superpowers comes with consequences. In early 2026, political tensions escalated after American lawmakers introduced proposals targeting alleged illegal Chinese mining activities inside Nigeria. Some US politicians linked those operations to insecurity and attacks affecting Christian communities in parts of the country. The allegations immediately triggered controversy. Critics argued the accusations reflected growing American anxiety over China's expanding access to Nigerian mineral reserves. Supporters of the bill insisted Washington was responding to genuine security concerns. But in Abuja, many policymakers saw something deeper: a growing attempt by foreign powers to shape Nigeria's strategic choices. The rivalry intensified quietly. In the Sahel, military governments in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger increasingly distanced themselves from Western influence. French forces withdrew, Western partnerships weakened. Into that vacuum came new actors: Russia for security, China for infrastructure, telecommunications, energy systems, and mining partnerships. Beijing's strategy evolved beyond roads and railways. Chinese engagement in Africa increasingly expanded into surveillance systems, cybersecurity, satellite cooperation, maritime security, digital infrastructure protection. In Niger and Mali, Chinese investments became tied to critical mineral access and strategic transit routes. But instability in the Sahel complicated everything. Insurgent violence escalated, coups reshaped alliances, and foreign powers began competing not only economically, but militarily. Then came another shock. Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister, Yusuf Tuga, resigned in 2026 amid growing political tensions before the 2027 election cycle. Officially, the resignation was tied to domestic political ambitions, but comments associated with his final diplomatic messaging drew enormous attention. He emphasized that Nigeria would not subordinate itself entirely to any single global power bloc. To some observers, it sounded like a warning, to others, a declaration of strategic independence. And then the competition moved into the most valuable battlefield of all, Africa's critical minerals. The modern global economy runs on minerals: lithium, cobalt, copper, rare earth elements. Without them, no electric vehicles, no AI infrastructure, no advanced weapons systems, no energy transition. Africa possesses many of these resources in massive quantities, and both Washington and Beijing know it. The Democratic Republic of the Congo alone controls a major share of global cobalt production. Zambia's copper corridors are becoming strategically vital. Nigeria's untapped rare earth and lithium sectors are attracting growing international attention. Suddenly, mining rights are no longer just business deals. They are geopolitical assets. American lawmakers increasingly framed Chinese mining operations as security threats. Chinese firms, meanwhile, positioned themselves as long-term development partners, offering infrastructure financing many Western institutions had hesitated to provide. Both sides accused the other of exploitation, and African governments found themselves trapped between investment opportunities and sovereignty risks. For ordinary Africans, geopolitics is not abstract. It affects electricity prices, internet access, employment, food inflation, security, migration, local industries. In parts of the Sahel, communities now live between insurgencies, collapsing state structures, and foreign strategic interests. In mining regions, residents often see wealth extracted while local development remains painfully slow. Yet there is another side to the story. African governments are increasingly negotiating harder. Some are demanding local processing instead of raw mineral exports. Others are diversifying partnerships across China, the Gulf, Turkey, India, Europe, and the United States simultaneously. A generation ago, that level of leverage was almost impossible. The danger is no longer simple colonization in its old form. The danger is strategic dependency hidden beneath modern investment language. The original Cold War divided the world into ideological camps. This new one is different. It is fought through ports, fiber optic cables, loans, data centers, rare earth minerals, military agreements, artificial intelligence infrastructure, and unlike the past, Africa is no longer silent. From Abuja to Addis Ababa, from Niamey to Johannesburg, leaders are increasingly attempting to negotiate on their own terms. The real question is whether Africa can transform global competition into genuine continental development. Before the competition transforms Africa itself, the new Cold War has already begun. The only uncertainty is who will control its outcome. The African male explores global events through the lens often overlooked by the international conversation: Africa's. If you value deeper geopolitical analysis grounded in African realities, subscribe and follow for more investigations into the stories shaping the continent's future. Share this video with someone today to enlighten them on how events around the globe influence Africa. Thank you for watching. Until next time.